Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Blind Spot. A great episode, kind of like probably the hardest episode. I had to kind of look away from the screen so much just because of like all the tension drama that goes on in this episode, because we finally find out what Dragonfly is all about. And it's like, oh, lo and behold, we find out that this all deals with Borden, that the CIA has known the entire time that Borden survived his little altercation with Patterson last season. In fact, they tracked him down a year later and ended up making him an asset. So basically they inserted him into some like terrorist group to kind of like figure it out to capture this guy, which so much is added insult to injury to this whole situation. Because for one, it's like Tasha betrayed everyone, so there's that, which not a lot of people really brought that up. Obviously it affects Patterson the most because it's like, you knew he was alive and you didn't tell me anything, which affects Patterson on multiple levels. Like that whole situation where Borden, like, it's kind of stunted her life a lot because of that. She hasn't it's just, she even talks about, like, she still dreams about him being around, like, wrapping his hands around her neck. He's kind of the main reason why she doesn't really get into a lot of relationships. She literally had that whole epiphany episode to kind of help get over Borden in particular, too. And adding more to it is the fact is that when she was like, oh, I have this feeling like Borden's still alive, you had Tasha be like, oh, you're crazy. No, what? No. Knowing damn well that not only was he alive, that she was in contact with him. And that makes things worse because it's like everything that guy did to me. And it's like, no matter what the consequences were, you should have told me the truth. Because eventually the FBI would have, like, I don't know, because it's something that even Nas was like, yeah, it will come out eventually, especially because it's a tattoo on Jane's body. Of course it was going to come out, but it's sad when you see it, like you see Tasha, like her mouth is open. She just like, shit, it's happening. And you see her, you can see the kind of cameras kind of from her perspective, like the camera lenses are like her eyes, and you see it kind of watering up because she knows what she's going to have to do that when it comes out. So she doesn't even beat around the bush and she tells him exactly. And it's like, because initially she wanted to hand him over to the FBI, but it's like, no, he's more used to the CIA. It's like, why? Because at first it's like, you made all this whole situation about Cade and his whole deal with the whole, like, being part of Sandstorm. It's like you literally have, like, one of the top people in Sandstorm and you're willing to cut him a deal, even being as far as, like, oh, well, you know, when you've done this, you'll kind of be set free, which I know was kind of BS. They kind of did the same thing to Cade, but still that he was given the opportunity. And he also has the audacity to be like, oh, all the pain I went through, all my burns and stuff like that. It's like, I'd be sympathetic to you, maybe, if you actually had a redeeming story like Jane did, but no, you were kind of a bastard the entire time, especially all the stuff that you did to Patterson, because even he's asking for Patterson later on, and it's like, Kurt's like, she doesn't owe you anything to make you sleep better, because he's like, oh, he feels so bad about it, he can't sleep or whatever, and it's like, screw that, dude. I mean, it turns out he didn't betray, like, the CIA, that, you know, he ended up being found out, but, what I mean is that, you know, the group that he was with found him out as a traitor and were trying to kill him. So, looks like when it's all said and done, he is being locked up for a very, very long time. Because obviously they were fortunately they were able to work together and decipher everything and stop the guy. But it's like Patterson, you can tell like this, it was breaking her down. She just literally had to get away because Borden was like, okay, we can lower this dude's like, you know, pain medicine. So they, you know, basically torture him with pain. And Patterson's like, we're not doing that because it reminded her of what went down with her. And so it took Rich kind of coming into her to kind of make her like, no. Like, you know, okay, kind of fight it out, kind of, you know, being a friend, actually like being there to support her. And he actually helped her figure out, and help end up stopping this attack. So, but so much has changed because of this situation. Like Patterson and Tasha will never be close, especially because the episode opened with them like, oh, eating like testing cakes for Meg and Reed's wedding. I'm like, dude, I was like, the moment that happened, I was like, and then found out about the Dragonfly situation. I was like, that they set that up at the beginning on purpose. And even Patterson's like, you were my best friend. You should have told me. Because even if she didn't tell the entire team, at the very least, or she should have told the entire team, maybe they wouldn't have been able to act upon it, but at least let them know that Borden was still at play and stuff like this. But for her, it's like, no, this is my job and everything. And it's just like, I wish you had never gone off to work with the CIA. Because that was something she brought up. Wasn't that last episode? Was the episode before last where she was kind of like, Keaton's way of doing things, it might not be what you like, but it's a way to get stuff done. And like, this is one of those situations of like, there is no right and wrong. It's just things are what they are. And it's like, okay, we use Border. He's a terrible person, sure. But we took down a very dangerous person that could have hurt a lot of people. So there's that. There's give and take with it. But it's still like, I don't know how Patterson and Tasha are going to move past this. Like I said, the rest of the team doesn't seem as bothered, but that's still probably going to be something going for, because the rest of the team's still going to be wondering, like, well, what else are you hiding from us, Tasha? Like, you know? And, you know, Nas was not lying when she was like, yeah, you're going to be super unpopular after this. Which it seemed like, hey, Reed was there for when, you know, Tasha went off drinking because of the whole situation. And then, like, Tasha spills the beans and is like, yeah, because I love you. And he's like, what the hell are you doing? I'm literally about to get married and you're dropping this on me. Why didn't you tell me 2 years ago? She's like, well, you talking about the painkillers. And it's like, so in their respective situation, even she kind of admits, like, I shouldn't have said that. She was getting drunk. She's hurt. She's pissed. She's sad. It flew out. Plus she's drinking a little bit, and it's just like, it was kind of fault on both ends, because they didn't respond to, like, they had the opportunities, but they didn't. She had an opportunity before they even got engaged to really step up. Patterson told her multiple times, but to be fair, it makes you wonder, would things be any different if she had, like, waited, and if her and Reed were in a relationship, would that change anything? But he walks away, and it's like, now she's slowly losing everyone. She lost her best friends just like that. Obviously, things between her and Reed are going to be super weird going forward, especially working together. But also, like I said, it didn't seem like the CIA thing bothered him as much, because it was more so like Patterson's situation. But even Patterson's like, I don't know if we could have that relationship now, like that right now. And it's just like, gosh, man, that sucks super hard. And it's like, no. Like, Patterson is completely justified with, like, everything Borden did to her. Like, because it's not even just what he did, like, that whole situation with him and Shepard torturing her. It's also the fact is he got close to her, but slept in her bed. And that's what terrifies her most. She even talked about the fact is she had trouble finding places because she was so scared that he'd come back and, you know, get her. But it's like, for her, it's like, she was always pissed because she never got to, like, make him pay for what he did. Like, he got the easy way out. He died. But now it's like, you could have given me that chance to kind of comfort her, knowing, like, okay, he's still alive and we can bust him and send him to jail for a long time. Which he's screaming at the end of it. He's like, no, let me talk to Patterson. Because Tasha revoked his deal and everything, which, like I said, the CIA was most likely going to do anyway. But I'm sure Tasha was first to be like, good. But even Patterson's like, I have nothing to say to him, because the fact of the matter is, I looked at him almost like he was a boogeyman. But it's like, I look at him now, he's just a scared he's a scared, weak man, you know? I'm curious what he would have said to her, but at the same time, I'm like, no, forget it, because I want him to kind of suffer, you know. That basically is a good thing, that he doesn't get to ease his conscience, that he kind of has to live with those nightmares and live with what he did. So, I don't know. I guess there's at least some solace in that, because even Patterson's like, maybe I'll never get over it. Maybe, basically, these will be scars that I'll always stay with her because of this, but all she can do is just live her life and go forward, so. Another thing that came up in this episode was this lady, Millicent. I forgot what her actual position is, but she came to investigate Rich, because basically it's like, oh, everything related to her, which in particular refers to Rich, his whole deal with the FBI. Like, he gets out of prison, he kind of works on the cases and stuff like that. And basically, it seemed like, oh, because of his connection to Hearst is what this was all about. But she started dragging up stuff from his past. Also, all the illegal stuff he did helping Patterson out, which, to be fair, she was setting Patterson up and all that, but it didn't matter. All the legal stuff that he was doing because Hearst was dirty and stuff like that. And she's like, oh, I guess these are just crimes that will stack on top of your already sentenced. And it's like, wait, what? She's just trying to use whatever she can, because even, finally, Rich kind of brings it out. It's like, this isn't about Hearst or even my job here. This is about me in particular. And she's like, yes. And basically she references JFK. She quotes JFK to him. It's like, it's not what you can do for your country, but what your country can do, what you can do for your country. It's not what your country can do for you. It's what you can do for your country. I butchered that first. I'm sorry. I might have got, nevertheless. And you have him be like, really? You're quoting JFK to me? He was a bigger slut than I was. But it's sad because, like, Rich has done good work with the task force and everything, and he was being criminalized for it. Yes, he had his criminal past, but to be fair, Jane literally had the same situation. But to be fair, as Keaton kind of said himself, it's like Jane had friends in high places, so that kind of kept her from that. But nevertheless, it's like she proved herself, and it's just like, people make mistakes, and his track record should prove enough all the stuff he's done. But so it isn't just about Hearst. It is about trying to get rid of corruption and stuff like that. It's like, I mean, to be fair, that's probably because y'all are looking at like, well, we're trying to lay the blame on anyone, like, about all of this. So, I mean, luckily the team was like, hey, no matter how much of a weirdo, kind of an asshole, Rich is, he actually does a good job. So all of them were like, hey, we need you to let him stay. So she's kind of like, okay, they'll put it on hold until his next review of next year. But then she talks about the fact is that Reed's going to be next up because he was chosen for his position by hers too. So now that puts his job at risk and his position at risk. You know, I don't know if it would necessarily put the task force or the team at risk, but it most likely will affect his position, especially because they looked at everything, you know, Rich has probably ever done. Like they probably got a good look at that. They're probably going to look heavily into Reed's past and probably find out about the drugs and stuff that he kind of got caught up in last season. I'm also wondering, because I just had a inkling, I think I brought it up earlier this season too, like some shape or form, that whole Freddie and Jones situation is going to come back and bite him in the ass in some shape or form. I feel like he has not completely gotten away from that, and this might be some dirt they end up like bringing back up, and he has to kind of suffer the ramifications for that. Him and Tasha, because they were kind of both heavily involved in that. So ultimately we'll have to wait and see like what goes down with that whole situation, you know? And then the final thing I want to talk about in this episode, interestingly enough, is we end up finding out a little bit more about what Crawford's plan is, like the land that he's building and stuff like that. It seems that basically he's trying to create like almost like a new nation type of thing, of basically he wants to create like a nation not led by particular leaders, but an army of military people who have no allegiances or alliances, who basically everything they do is for the good of the world. They make these decisions where it's not like, oh, politics or people's personal situations are like, oh, no, like, oh, these take a part. And it's like, no, they have these military people will have the money they need to do whatever they need to, but they will take swift action. They will do whatever they need to kind of keep order in the world. And trying to build some weird militant utopia, I guess, is kind of his thing, which I find so fascinating, because that doesn't seem, I mean, I guess it makes sense because Sandstorm's whole situation was kind of like trying to get rid of, you know, the whole thing behind Jane's tattoo was getting rid of corruption in the like government system. So they were trying to like remake the US more in their image of getting the appropriate leaders, hence like, you know, why Kurt was on board and stuff like that, because they felt like he'd be in a central role. He could fill one of the roles and all of that stuff, like in particular leading the FBI with all the corruption that kind of went around. I do wonder, like, it probably would have still been a situation where Sandstorm probably would have pulled the strings from behind the scenes. So I don't know. Like it just doesn't seem like that'd be Crawford's thing. He just seems like a bloodthirsty businessman. But hey, maybe this is kind of like where his heart and his passion is, which is weird to say about a villain. But I guess it's a situation of like, maybe it's a combination of two. This is what he believes, and he can make a crap ton of money off it. I don't know. Interesting thing, I didn't even know about this until I recently just randomly Googled it. I ended up finding out that the actor who plays Roman, Luke Mitchell, is Australian. Because I was thinking like, oh man, it's weird he's putting on an Australian accent. I was like, oh man, he's faking it. I was like, but it's like, oh wow, that's actually his authentic accent. I guess because in my head it's just like I've always heard him with his American accent, like in everything I've seen him in, from Tomorrow People to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to this. He's always had an American accent. So it kind of threw me off. But it's like, no, you're literally, so they wrote it in the show for him just to use his natural accent. That's pretty neat. I think it's kind of interesting when stuff like that happens in TV shows. It actually happens a lot more than you would kind of think it would. At least I kind of feel like that. It must be like the writers and the creators behind the show kind of having a little more fun. Nevertheless, what's interesting is like you had Roman being on the phone with someone earlier in the episode. Like he's got to get to someone or something. Like it sounded like it was more like a medical emergency for someone else in particular, a lady. I was like, who's that supposed to be? Like, what is that supposed to represent? But then later on, Roman passes out himself, and it's like, what's up with that? Is that why you're orchestrating all of this? Are you actually sick and you're dying and are you trying to do some good before you die? Like, we still don't 100% know what Roman's gaining out of this. Like, maybe he's actually inadvertently helping someone. Maybe this whole like situation to take down. Or was he calling to try and talk to Blake? Is that what that was? I wasn't sure. It sounded like it was more like a medical emergency type of. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of actually blanking on it right now, like what the exact thing he was talking on the phone about. But it does beg the question, like, why is he doing this? Like I said, my whole thought was like, okay, this is for the purposes of taking control of everything that he has. But if you're helping the FBI take him down, like, is that really the case? Like, is it some like personal vendetta he has? I guess because now in retrospect, it's like, well, Sandstorm kind of gave birth to him, and maybe he's thinking like, well, Sandstorm got taken down, so I want to take everything down that was associated with Sandstorm, because Sandstorm basically destroyed his life, which is kind of, if that was the case, it's like, well, it's interesting considering the fact is he lost his memory, so he was no longer part of Sandstorm, but he ended up going back to Sandstorm when he gained back some of his memories. So I have no idea what Roman's real motives are, but it's interesting because him and Crawford actually bonded in this episode, because Crawford, like, he talked about anger because of his own respective, like, upbringing, his abusive stepfather to his mom, and being pissed at his stepfather for doing what he did, as well as being pissed at himself for not doing anything about it. And he sees that same anger in Roman, which Roman has this whole situation with his family, which obviously, without going into details, he kind of applies it to his fake persona here, Tom, and kind of applies it to his life. And that was kind of interesting. But it does seem like it did bring him and Crawford closer, to the point like Crawford's like, here's one of these pens. It represents like you kind of being close in the inner circle. Even Roman, like when he sent the final message to Jane and them at the FBI, he had it heavily encrypted. And when he woke up, his phone was going. So I was kind of like, makes you want to know, what does Crawford know? I mean, without hesitation, he killed Victor pretty quickly, but who's to say he hasn't found out what Roman's up to, and he's just letting Roman kind of hang himself more and more, get all the players together so that he can wipe them all out together. Ultimately, we'll kind of have to wait and see, because like I said, like, Roman sent the message basically saying that this is enough for them to take down Crawford with what this deal he's trying to make buying the land. So ultimately, we will have to wait and see how all of this plays out and goes down in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.